Well, good morning, everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. It's a pleasure to be here, and I want to thank Reverend Joe and the congregation for allowing me to continue to be a part of this series that Unity is choosing to do on Dr. Don Miguel Ruiz's book, The Four Agreements. And as we talked about, the Four Agreements describes the Toltec approach to spiritual and personal transformation, which is some of the basic principles of unity, and it is certainly has been a part for over 30 years, some of my own journey in personal and spiritual transformation. And a little bit about me. You know, when I was first asked to be a part of this by my friend Jim, I was flattered because I used the Four Agreements often in my life. It was introduced to me by the lovely Louise, my wife, and her work in her own life, and I found it to be very useful and appropriate for me when I choose to open myself up for new ideas. It's surprising what may or may not happen, but I won't know unless I try to do it. Behold the turtle who makes no progress until it sticks its neck out. So that was my first reaction. The second reaction was a lot of trepidation because I made some assumptions about how it would be and is this really appropriate for me? And you know, I really am not involved with any particular religion or church, but I'm on the spiritual path. And as it said up there about service is the opportunity to be of service. And I never really know what my Creator, the Divine, has for me of what service looks like. And I think this is what it looks like, is that I'm here today. So what I'm going to ask you all to do is you're getting my interpretation of things. And so I ask for your indulgence. And I look at the world through these glasses. And you all look at the world through your own glasses. And your own glasses may very well be the glass or the polymer that shapes the light waves, but it is also your own life experience as to how you view the world. And what we do in this series, and what I'm asking you to do, is for just about 15 minutes or so, I ask you to try these on. And you don't have to accept it. It might be a little blurry at first, it might be uncomfortable, but you know, you get to put your own back on, and then you can see if there's a blending. I do integrate the Four Agreements into my morning, daily prayer and meditation. I've been doing that for quite a while. I find that in my morning, when I get up and I want to start my day, I ask for a creative spirit, God as I understand my God, to be a part of my life, and that I also can take some action. And the Four Agreements are all about action. Remember that we started this series talking about the Toltec as scientists, as healers, as spiritual guides, and their belief that humans are raised and they become domesticated or trained, if you will, to accept a range of agreements about social roles, individual roles, what goes with what. You don't wear white after Labor Day. What do we give boys? What do we give girls? How do people behave? All these agreements that we've gotten that we have accepted. And that who are those that give us those agreements? We don't make them up for ourselves. They were our parents, or religious leaders, teachers, social institutions, schools, siblings, etc. And in essence, the Toltec say, and Don Miguel Ruiz indicates, that we all have set up our own separate set of laws and agreements, if you will, that rule our life. And we are our own judges, and we are our own victims as we move through life. And the Four Agreements, the purpose of the Four Agreements was to offer us a way to change our perceptions and to live our own heaven on earth, as opposed to living in our heads and having a lot of negative energy and living on a hell on earth. We've already talked about the first agreement, to be impeccable with your word, and remember that your word is the power that you have to create. The word is a gift that comes directly from God, and it's how we communicate to our others. And the other thing that's important, it's how we communicate to ourselves. We're always in the constant conversation between our ears. I may not let you know what I'm saying, I may hold it in, but I've got the conversation going. The committee, the community, the mob, depends on the day of what you call that range of messages that are in there saying do, don't, push, pull, all of those things. Your word is the most powerful tool you have, and we use it to create, and we always can use it to destroy. You may have heard of mouth karate as a way that people inflict harm, as well as the praise that we have. And in the meditation today, and what I hear in this room is the use of the word for loving, caring, supportive, healing, imaginative, joyful state of being. It's a two-edged sword. And the other thing about to be impeccable with your word is not only what you tell others, but again, it is what you tell yourself. And so, to impeccable, according to Don Miguel Ruiz, means to be without sin. So, be kind to yourself. And we sang about it. Put the hammer down. The second agreement we talked about was not to take things personally. And this encourages us to understand that the messages that other people give us really don't have anything to do with us. It's really all about their experience and how they are justifying their own place in the world. And it isn't about us at all. And that one of the things is that when we've talked about how people blame us for the situations that come up in life. The reason that I failed that test is you asked me to do so-and-so. And it distracted me, and I didn't have the time to study. I used to get that all the time as a retired faculty. I heard all the reasons why people didn't get assignments in or did badly. And I really knew I didn't take any of it personally. You weren't clear in your lecture. I went on the website, and I didn't find, it wasn't about me. It's all about somebody else's experience. And so that when we begin not to take things personally, we remove ourselves from the poison that other people may want to put out. And especially from gossip, And so, we talked about that last week, or Reverend Joe talked about it last week. When we take things personally, we feel offended, and you want to retaliate and defend your beliefs, right? And that creates conflicts. And if you don't take things personally, you avoid conflict, gossip, and spreading poison in your world. Today we're going to talk about the third agreement, which is to not make assumptions. Now, last week, Reverend Joe made a point of saying, and you all have probably heard that, the assumptions. What happens when we assume things. The interesting thing is that as humans, we have a tendency to make assumptions about everything and everyone else, including ourselves. I had assumptions when I first was asked to be a part of this. I had assumptions when I first came in and met Reverend Joe. And when I first came in and we tag teamed 2 weeks ago. And so, but at least I'm aware now when I am making assumptions. And so what I work on with this agreement is that when I have an opportunity and I'm faced with a new situation, I have thoughts and ideas, but rather than make assumptions, I want to sit back and wait a minute and try to clarify these things. The problem oftentimes is that the assumptions that we make, we believe to be true. It's going to be another church. I don't know what's going on. It's going to be all this ritual. Oh man, I stopped doing that early on in my childhood. And that could very well have kept me from coming in and experiencing the energy that's here. And what I found is, well, some of that is true, but a lot of it is not true. Because I made myself available and I chose to take a risk. I chose to experience something different. We make assumptions, we misunderstand, we believe it to be true, we take it personally, we blame others, then we talk about it and we gossip and we send that poison out into the world and we create this great big drama. Now, Don Miguel Ruiz says that all the drama and sadness you have lived in your life was rooted in you making assumptions and taking things personally. all those bad experiences that you've had. It's always better, I believe, and Don Miguel Ruiz says, to ask questions than to make an assumptions, because assumptions set us up for suffering. Because we spin off, we think it's going to be this way, that way, and we don't allow reality to show itself. We don't see things as they really are. And one of the examples that they'll talk about, how often have you been at a mall, or you've been even to this congregation or other places where there are some of your peers or other folks, and somebody looks at you and they smile, and then they walk away. Oh, they like me. Oh, I wonder what it'd be like. Maybe, I wonder, would I like them? And now you've talked and you've had coffee, and now you're a couple and got married. You go on and on and on and on and on. You know, we make these assumptions and then we carry it on, and then, and then, and then, and then, and then. Now, I'm a behaviorist. My doctorate and all of my work is not only I'm couched in science, and there are different kinds of messages that we get when we communicate with each other. Now, I'm going to take off my glasses for a minute, and I want you to look at my face and look at my eyes. And I want you to look, I'm going to do 2 specific behaviors. Are you ready? Here's the first one. Did you catch that? Here's the second one. What's the difference between a wink and a blink? What's the difference between a wink and a blink? 1 eye, 2 eyes. What does it mean? One is volitional, one is involuntary. That's one way to look at it, right? When my eyes dry, what do we do involuntarily? We close our eyes, we open them, and it provides lubrication of our eyes. And sometimes, if you're lying, well, you know, I don't want to make eye contact. The point I want to make is we see things, but we make assumptions about the intent of what it means. What is the difference between a wink and a blink? And what does a wink mean? Hey, how's it going? How you doing? Or is it just an acknowledgement of someone here? And I can't take the opportunity to break off what I'm doing, but you're looking at me, I'm acknowledging you're present, and now you're included. But how do we really know? And so as a behaviorist, we need to pay attention to if I'm standing like this or if I'm standing with my fist balled up underneath my armpits. You know, there's a difference in our behaviors. The other thing that happens with assumptions, and especially with our relationships at work and our families, is we assume that our partners know or should know what we mean when we say certain things. We've been together for fill in the blank, and why is it that you don't know? I mean, I talked about this before. Don't you remember? Well, I don't know about you, but I'm selfish and self-centered a lot, and I may not be much, but I'm all I think about. So we have to, stop for a minute and ask clarifying questions, which sometimes creates drama, because what's interesting and what Four Agreements talks about is that we have been raised with, that we look for and we strive for safety, clarity, and continuity in our lives. That makes sense? We want these things. And so as we communicate with others, we want to have things be, fine. And we have agreements that prevent us from asking questions. You may or may not have had that experience early on in your life. Why do I have to do this? You asking a clarification. What were the first things that we were told?
Because I said so.
Because I said so. And the I was fill in the blank. Your parent, a sibling, the babysitter, the teacher, the pastor, the police, the boss. Because I said so.
Somebody who might withhold their life.
Yes. Don't question me. And so we have these situations that come up. And as a result, in our minds, when we make assumptions, we're judging ourselves and we're judging others. And we also sometimes think that how we perceive the world, I believe that you perceive the world the same way. I mean, all of you are sitting at the Unity congregation today. There may be some assumptions about how each of you either currently do or would like to have your spiritual life go in a certain way, and your exploration and your journey. It's the one thing I know is that the learning's never over. You know, the learning's never over. You know, and I've never been in church today before. Right?
Yeah.
For people in recovery, I've never been sober today before. All I have is right now. And all I have is the opportunities that are present. And so knowing that we sometimes make assumptions, how do I not make assumptions? We do that behaviorally by asking questions. And there's a lot of different ways to ask questions. We need to take action. As a behaviorist, this is something else I know. You can't talk your way out of something you behaved your way into. You cannot talk your way out of something that you behaved your way into. If I gained 40 pounds by eating Chunky Monkey every night for a year and not exercising, I behaved my way into the weight gain. I can't lose the weight by talking about it. I have to behave my way out of it. And so if we make assumptions, what are the behaviors that we can do? And that's one of the beauties of the 4 agreements. It is a proactive, if you will, plan of action of how we can behave. So we can ask questions. Now, I've learned over the years that being a health educator, and I also have a degree in social work, and I've worked a lot with different client groups, I want to find out information. And I've been taught and experienced that asking why is not the most efficient or effective way to get information, because immediately puts someone on the defensive. Justify for me why you did that. As opposed to, can you tell me about? Or, how about trying this? I don't understand. Use an I statement. And we learn in health education and health promotion, and I think in some of the other practices, to own your own voice, to find your own voice, and to own your own feelings. And to know that it's okay to say, I don't know. It's okay not to know. It's okay to say, I need help. It's okay to say, I don't understand. Would you help me understand? Am I hearing you correctly? And then parroting back or reflecting back. These are all ways to avoid making assumptions and to have clarity. I don't know that I'm standing on your toe if you don't say, ow, you're on my toe. You know, because if I'm not know, what usually happens? My apologies. I did not know I was on your toe. Now we have an opportunity to communicate with each other. One of the other things that is important is to be assertive and not be aggressive. Being aggressive means getting whatever it is you want without the concern of the expense of somebody else. I'm going to get what I want. Hey! Fill in the blank. Being assertive is letting people know what you'd like how things to be without it being at the expense of anybody else. Setting your boundaries, making people aware, these are the things that are important for me, being clear in your communication, or other ways that we can work with that. The other last thing that I want to share, and then I'm going to read a little bit from the 4 agreements, is that not making assumptions in communication takes time. As an educator, for 40 years, being in the classroom and at the university, I would always ask my students, I would like you to think about whatever it was. And then I would sit down. Because it takes time to think. And we don't do it instantaneously. So if I ask a question, would you think about? Know that when you ask people to think about things, or when you're trying to clarify your communication, it takes time to think, to reflect, to frame your response, and then share it. And in our fast-paced lives, we tend to want to do things like this, don't we? And to live a spirit-filled and drama-less life takes time and some energy. So allow yourself time and energy. Well, I want to close with reading a little bit from, this is page 74 of the 4 Agreements. This is the end of his statement about the 3 agreements. Taking the action over and over again strengthens your will, nurtures the seed, and establishes a solid foundation for the new habit to grow. After many repetitions, these new agreements will become second nature, and you will see how the magic of your word transforms you from a black magician into a white magician. We all know about Glinda the Good. A white magician uses the word for creation, giving, sharing, and loving. Making this one agreement a habit, not making assumptions. Your whole life will be completely transformed. When you transform your whole dream, magic just happens in your life. What you need comes to you easily because the Spirit moves freely through you. This is the mastery of intent, the mastery of the Spirit, the mastery of love, the mastery of gratitude, and the mastery of life. This is the goal of the Toltec. This is the path to personal freedom. Namaste.